All right, hello everyone. This is Anthony Smith, retired Special Warfare boat operator, conducting interviews with retired and former SWCC operators. This is interview number 19. We're talking about some of the symptoms of operator syndrome. As a framework, we're talking with Chief Warrant Officer retired Tony Howdeshell, and we're also talking about some TBI, major orthopedic injuries. And here's Tony.
So, Tony Howdeshell, Chief Warrant Officer 4 when I retired in 2017. Out of my 30 years in the military, I did about 25 of that as a SWCC operator. First command out of going through the schoolhouse in California. First command I went to for NSW was SBT 20, or at the time it was SBU 20 before they changed the name. I did 5 RIB deployments back to back out of there. Was the first detachment to surge from the East Coast into the Middle East after 9/11. Finished that time up at Boat Unit 20 or Boat Team 20. Went out to California, ran the SWCC schoolhouse for 3 years. Actually, I was the course manager that stood up the CQT course as a chief. Made warrant officer when I was in California. Went back to SBT 20 to do my Mark 5 detachment. Boat Team, I did a Mark 5 detachment into the Middle East, into Iraq. Finished that up. Was home for about a week, and then turned around and redeployed to Africa. Was the first task unit commander, SWCC task unit commander in Africa, running the task unit Man to Bay. Did that for about 11 months. Did some pretty unique stuff, working with some higher echelon units while we were there. From there, came back, was hand-selected to be the first SWCC warrant officer to go to, at the time, what was the special support activities, and it became Special Reconnaissance Team 2. Did that for about 5 years, 4 combat deployments out of that to Iraq. Then was hand-selected to go to Naval Special Warfare Group 10 as a plank owner, stood that up, doing special activities work. And from there, I did two combat deployments to Afghanistan, and then 2 combat deployments in the Horn of Africa and Somalia, and then retired after that. So altogether, when you add up all my deployments and going all the way back to Desert Storm when I was in the fleet, I got 15 combat deployments.
Okay.
Interview number 19 is a testimonial of Tony's medical records and conditions. He answered questions from the following questionnaire formats and gave permission to produce his presentation and share it openly. We covered the operator syndrome scale, the GAT-7 scale, the PLC-5 scale, the PHQ-9, the NSI, neurobehavioral symptoms inventory, and the SWCC background questionnaire. So Tony was in the Navy for 30 years. He spent 25 years as a SWCC operator. He was in SWCC class 26 and he graduated back in 1998. He did 8 SWCC boat deployment cycles, full cycles, 7 ground deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and Africa, and totaling 15 deployments. He served at SBU 20, then became SBT 20. He was also at the center at the schoolhouse for CQT. He served at SRT 2 and Special Warfare Group 10. He worked on the 10 meter ribs, 11 meter ribs, and the Mark 5s. He has about 24,000 hours, probably more, of time on SWCC fast boats, an estimated 2.9 million wave pounding events that cause whiplash and mTBI. And he was within the blast radius of 3 IEDs while running convoys, and was in 1 MRAP rollover as well. So Navy SWCC is a special class of elite naval warriors who have been a decisive force behind some of America's most important secret missions. Special boat operations have unique and often deadly challenges due to the combination of operating powerful, sophisticated machines designed for speed and stealth in some of the planet's most inhospitable environments. The average SWCC career operator experiences mTBI and major orthopedic injuries over the course of their career in peacetime and in war. And Naval Special Warfare conducts missions in over 70 countries, 365 days a year. The sum of SWCC injury does not accumulate until the operator retires. Before we talk more about the interview, we need to briefly discuss operator syndrome. Operator syndrome is not a diagnosis, it is a qualitative descriptive framework of a nexus of symptoms and illnesses, and it was coined by Dr. Christopher Free. There's a DOI link to it there, and we're going to be talking about operator syndrome and as it pertains to SWCC operators. So operator syndrome is a nexus of psychiatric illnesses and disorders along with chronic major orthopedic injuries as defined in the literature. Operator syndrome affects all SOF forces, that's all special operations forces from every major branch due to the nature of our job and our training and our deployment cycles and our high op tempo. There's a list of different SOF units right there throughout the branches, and SWCC is included in this group of SOF operators. So operator syndrome symptoms, there's a pretty big nexus of symptoms within this framework. Everything in red that you see here are things that Tony deals with. Traumatic brain injury, endocrine dysfunction, sleep disturbance, obstructive sleep apnea, chronic joint pain, back pain, orthopedic problems, and headaches. He also has migraines. Some depression, PTSD issues, anger issues, worry, rumination, stress reactivity, being on guard and hypervigilant, memory, concentration, and cognitive impairments, vestibular and vision impairments, and then some of the existing common issues with operators. He has a mindset that kind of discounts the future, as many of us SWCCs kind of look at the future, knowing that our mental capacities are deteriorating over time, and just kind of worried about what that's going to look like in 5 or 10 years. Some survivors get a lot of that. He had many guys that he deployed with that committed suicide, and then he has a fear of developing invisible wounds. Alright, so here are some of Tony's comorbidities due to SWCC boat operations. He has a diagnosis of TBI. He did go to NICO before he retired, and he does have a VA rating for traumatic brain injury. His brain MRI showed about 10 different white spots, the biggest one being on the front left lobe, which happens to be where he hit his head on the window on the Mark V during a wave impact in which he was knocked out, and he actually broke the window on that Mark V. He has some moderate symptoms of PTSD. He does not have a diagnosis. He has some anxiety, depression. He has endocrine dysfunction, sleep apnea. He has a rating for that. Insomnia, he has extreme difficulties staying asleep. He has a left hip surgery to basically rebuild his left hip. He has 5 right shoulder surgeries and is pending a right shoulder replacement. He has headaches and migraines. He has VA rating for that. His migraines get severe every few days, and he has a service dog that actually can sense on the onset of migraines before they happen, and the service dog really helps out, especially with migraines. He has hypervigilance, memory loss, pretty severe, concentration difficulties, and dizziness, loss of balance, and clumsiness. And some other symptoms and issues. He has definitely mental fatigue, some C spine compression, L spine compression, sensitivity to light and noise. He has photophobia, which was diagnosed. He has hearing problems. He has tinnitus. He wears hearing aids. Vision problems. He's lost his night vision, and he also wears glasses and readers. He has numbness in his feet. Definitely allostatic overload. Some chronic joint pain, anger issues, irritability issues. He has high blood pressure and cholesterol. Pretty extreme difficulty relaxing. He's pretty restless. He has had some issues with tachycardia, and he does have high levels of survivor's guilt. He has had several teammates, as I mentioned earlier, that he deployed with who have committed suicide, and he also has high concerns for the future regarding memory and cognitive decline, as every other SWCC operator does as well. All right, here are some common symptoms that SWCC operators experience while operating on SWCC boats, and Tony said he experienced these. He experienced fatigue due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. He experienced dizziness due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. He experienced blackouts and blood in his urine due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. He's also been knocked out a couple times on the Mark 5s and the ribs. He's experienced whiplash due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. He's experienced confusion, lack of focus and concentration due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. He's experienced whole body wave pounding and whiplash at speeds of 65 miles an hour. He's experienced wave pounding at seas at and above 10 feet. And he's also experienced orthopedic injuries due to wave pounding on SWCC boats. So, traumatic brain injury for Chief Warrant Officer, SWCC retired Tony Howdeshell. The average SWCC operator logs about 3,000 hours of boat time on a deployment cycle. Roche did a 94 study in which they conducted underway studies on NSW fast boats over 6 days for a period of 36 hours, which totaled 8,610 wave impacts ranging from 2 to 25 or 25 Gs. Of those 8,610 wave impacts, 4,496 impacts range above 5 Gs. Those 4,496 5G or greater impacts in 36 hours totals out to or equals out to about 124 significant whiplashing events in an hour. The average SWCC operator endures about 124 whiplash events in 1 hour operating at fast boats that cause traumatic brain injury. Every SWCC operator possibly endures over 374,000 significant G-force impacts from wave pounding on SWCC boats in a deployment cycle. And when you look at Tony's deployments as a boat operator, he did 8 deployments with 2.9 million significant full body impacts while wave slamming on SWCC boats, causing disastrous long-term effects of chronic orthopedic injury, whiplash, and TBI, and other issues. He also did 7 ground-based deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Africa. All right, so here's a summary of operator syndrome, the framework that we're dealing with here, and all the symptoms in it for retired warrant officer Tony Howdeshell. Etymologically speaking, Tony is a 53-year-old retired SWCC operator. As of right now, this is February 2023. He has 25 years of SWCC boat service, 8 SWCC deployment cycles on boats, to include 24,000 hours of boat time or more, causing 2.9 million significant full body impacts while wave pounding on SWCC boats. Tony has over 23 symptoms of mTBI and a nexus of operator syndrome symptoms. He endured whiplash, blackouts, urinated blood from wave pounding at significant G-forces from full body wave pounding exposure. Tony went to NICO on active duty and was diagnosed with TBI and numerous post-concussion symptoms which impede his quality of life. Long-term effects of mTBI, major orthopedic injuries, are debilitating for SWCC operators like Tony. Tony does not have a 100% disability rating from the VA, and I'm not going to cuss, but anyway, he doesn't have that. According to Tony, he was a young SWCC operator. When he was a young SWCC operator, first getting on those SWCC boats, he did not have significant mental, physical, and emotional impairments compared to now after 25 years of being a SWCC operator and working on SWCC boats. Tony did 7 ground-based deployments between Iraq, Afghanistan, and Africa with SRT, and was in the blast radius of 3 IEDs, and was involved in an MRAP rollover. And Tony said he did 1 year of high school football. All right, so the conclusions from this ongoing project. So far, I've done 19 interviews or record reviews from former SWCC operators. As of to date, 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far have significant TBI exposure contributing to post-concussion symptoms. 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far experienced full body weight pounding, whiplash, orthopedic injury from SWCC boat operations, which is proven to cause mental, emotional, and physical injury. 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far who were never diagnosed with TBI before TBI protocols were implemented lacked those VA ratings from service-connected injuries due to SWCC fast boat service. The VA contends that these issues are not service-connected for the majority of us because they were not claimed while we were on active duty. All SWCC operators who have attended NICO while on active duty have VA ratings for TBI and other PCS symptoms. So that in itself is some of the proof that we're trying to show here. All the guys that were never diagnosed, never seen for TBI, never complained about it, they don't have ratings, although they all have TBI symptoms so far from all the interviews that we've gone through. Yet every guy that's gone to NICO and has gone through the screening process, since the protocols have been put in place, they all have all of these things covered and diagnosed through NICO. Information in this presentation provides evidence Tony was a SWCC operator on SWCC fast boats for multiple deployments, and the aggregate of data collected in these interviews connect long-term TBI and post-concussion syndrome and orthopedic injury to SWCC boat service. Most importantly, thousands of former and retired SWCC operators suffer from long-term mTBI and major orthopedic injury without acknowledgement or help from the VA or the DoD. There remains a gap in TBI research on this particular peer group. If you're looking for references for any of the SWCC TBI related material that I have presented so far, you can find it on my YouTube page and there's a link to it. Just look up Anthony Smith. Thank you very much. Have a great day.